Welcome to another episode of Homeo Mitra Vartalap, dear friends. And today's episode is not going to be about patient education. This is going to be a hardcore academic podcast. And for that, we have with us Assistant Professor, Department of Repertory at Dr. MLW Memorial Homeopathic Institute, Dr. Chetna Sakpal.
Yes.
Uh, but before we start, Dr. Chetna, if you could tell us why you took up PG in the subject of repertory. She has done her PG in the same institute, and I believe this is your third year teaching at this place.
Yes.
So why this subject in your postgraduate?
So, as we all know, that case taking is the prime most important thing for the homeopath. And after case taking comes the analysis, evaluation of the symptom, identification of the symptom, then conversion of those symptoms into rubrics, appropriate rubrics, and then utilizing those into repertoire totality, finalizing, and coming to a small set of remedies which will help us to the final prescription. So all these tips are very much covered in the subject of repertory. So I was always interested in this, and I took it as a postgraduate subject. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And then why this journey into academics? I mean, you could have gone into practice, you could have,
Yes.
I don't know, maybe done a PhD or something like that. But why you started teaching?
Yeah. So I think I always had this inclination of teaching since childhood. Whatever I have learned in a day, I will teach it to others. I will share it with the others, or with my peers, sibling, or anyone. Then my mother is primary school teacher. I have seen her teaching, working very sincerely, and shaping those little kids since childhood. So I was always inspired by her, and I also made few other great teachers in my journey throughout. And this was my father's dream to me see me as a doctor. So when I got this opportunity to enter into academics, that too in my alma mater, working practitioner as well as academic, so I just felt that I knew I'm going to take it, and that's why. And I think it has helped me a lot. It has helped me in terms of my knowledge, in terms of my confidence, and also in terms of my personal growth, that way.
Wonderful. This is very inspiring, and such a motivation usually makes the best teachers that we have today. Uh,
Yes.
so going further, so before we start today's main topic of discussion, which is
Yes.
into academics and OBGYN repertory, if you
Yes.
could just summarize what we had discussed in the last podcast.
Yes, Dr. Gayur. So I think in the last podcast which we had, we discussed about what homeopaths should know in the field of ops and gynecology, mainly about the commonest clinical condition which we are likely to encounter in our OPD, and what is our scope and limitation in it. And then also we discussed about few repertories which are useful, few commonly prescribed remedies, and ancillary measures of PCOS and few other clinical conditions which were there. So this was the discussion that majorly happened in the last podcast.
Right. So today we are going to take this further from here,
Yes.
and so we are going to have a discussion on different repertories, how the symptomatology related to menstrual complaints is available in different repertories.
Yes.
But before going to that, can you briefly tell us about the value of menstrual state in homeopathic prescription?
Yes, Dr. Gayur. The thing is, menstruation or menstrual complaints or menstrual state, the symptoms related to it carries higher value in the totality and in the final prescription, because in the homeopathy, analysis and evaluation of the symptom is of utmost important step, right? So we already know it is in the literature that general symptoms carry higher value than the particular symptoms. And then further in the general symptoms also, mental generals are higher importance, then comes the physical general. Then in physical general also, first the bodily reactions to the external environment, and then in case of female comes menstruation or menstrual state, right? So menstrual state is considered as characteristic physical general. The question comes is why? Because menstruation is a normal physiological process. It represents patient as a person, right? And that's why it is called as physical general. It helps us to individualize the patient, and it helps us to differentiate one female from the another female, right? So that's why it carries higher value in the totality and in the final prescription also. Now, how much it is important? See, If a female comes to you after menopause, say after 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years, maybe much longer duration after it, but she has already attained her menopause. Still, if you are inquiring her menstrual history and there are some characteristic menstrual concomitants or characteristic menstrual discharges which are available to you, then also you can utilize those symptoms in your current totality to treat any kind of disease, because those states which is there, it represents patient as a person, and that's why it is important in current totality also. So as you can say that menstrual history is never considered as past history of the patient, because menstrual state and menstruation is always considered as physical general and will continue to remain physical general, but provided there is some local pathology. If there is local pathology, then it will be considered as particular. I'll explain this in detail. Okay. First is physiology, that is normal functioning. Then comes altered physiology, that is altered functioning. And then comes the pathology. That means the disease has localized already. I can explain with the example of dysmenorrhea. Okay. See, if cramps during menstruation, cramps in lower abdomen during menstruation is a normal physiological process because of uterine contraction. Female experiences that maybe first 2 days of the menstruation, not more than that, and it is not affecting her daily activities or daily well-being. She is maintaining herself very well. So this is normal physiological process. So any concomitant which is present before, during, after menses and the character of discharge will be considered as physical general of that case, right? Understood. Then comes the altered functioning. Suppose this female starts experiencing cramps or pain in higher intensity, which is making her daily activity difficult, which is not allowing her to work, and there are few other symptoms which are there. So that means what? There is altered functioning. Obviously, we have to check the USG for finding if there is any local pathology. If it is not there, that means it is purely altered functioning of that patient, right? In that case, what happens is you can use those menstrual symptoms for the diagnosis. Say in this case, we can diagnose this patient as primary dysmenorrhea, as having primary dysmenorrhea, right? So it happens if you are considering those symptoms for the diagnosis, then it becomes common. Same in case of pathology also. Pathology means the disease has already developed. There is local pathology, say uterine fibroid, polyp, PID, anything can be there. So when disease has already localized, the pathology is already there, means it is confined to the female genitalia. That means it becomes particular. Again, you can use these symptoms for diagnosis purpose. It will go into the category of diagnostic rubrics or diagnostic symptoms, and the value of it will remain at the level of common symptom. Then you will say that if it is common symptom, then how can I use these symptoms for my totality formation or for my final prescription? Then comes there is another concept. When the common symptoms are available in higher intensity, plus 3 is higher in homeopathic practice. So if it is available in higher intensity, then these symptoms are considered as characteristic symptoms. So these common symptoms becomes characteristic, but still altered at the level of altered functioning. If you are saying at the level of general and particular, if you ask me, even in altered functioning, because it is at the level of function, still it will be considered as general only. It won't be considered as particular. But in case of pathology, which is already developed, that means it is considered as particular symptom. So those symptoms, if even if common, if it has higher intensity, then you can consider it as characteristic particular. You can utilize it in the totality, and repertorize it and finalize your prescription. These are three levels, but still you can use those symptoms in your prescription, provided the criteria is fulfilled.
So now I think we have classified the symptoms according to particulars, generals, characteristic particulars and generals
Yes.
in the local area, which is the FGUS.
Yes.
And after that, we have decided to take them up as rubrics under different repertories.
Yes.
I hope I've understood that right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that we have understood the value of menstrual state in the prescription, what are the various types of rubrics which are available in various repertories that we can use in our day-to-day practice?
Yes. So, as we have discussed earlier, the concomitants before, during, and after menses carries higher value, but it is again a vast topic. So, currently, we will just stick to the uterine bleeding, means the character of discharge and the variability of the bleeding which is there. So first comes the character of menstrual discharge. So in the Kane's repertory and even in synthesis repertory, these are directly available in the female genitalia chapter under menses, main rubric as menses, and under that there are various sub rubrics of the character of discharge available in an alphabetical manner, starting from bright red color, black, dark, black with clotted. Then there are additional rubrics such as meat water like, meat like, offensive like meat wash, then stringy, tenacious, ropey. So all these rubrics which are there. So this will help us in the final in the totality also, in the repertorization also, and at the same time case taking also, because if you know this many number of varieties there available in the repertory, then we should inquire that in the patient also. So all the discharges which are there are highly characteristic, and you can directly use it in your totality and your final prescription. Then comes the pattern of bleeding. Normal duration of menstrual cycle is 21 to 35 days, and which last the period lasts for 3 to 7 days. This is normal. Anything beyond this is considered as abnormal. So abnormal uterine bleeding is considered when the bleeding is irregular, either abnormal in the amount or abnormal in the duration. So the most commonest presentation is menorrhagia. Menorrhagia means there is cyclical bleeding, but it is excessive, either excessive in the amount, that is more than 80 ml, or there is duration is longer, that is more than 7 days, or both can be present. So one caution I would like to say over here: whenever a female comes to you with a complaint of menorrhagia, we always tend to ask how many number of pads she requires in a day. So many a times they say 5, 7, 10, or something like that. After that, we just take it as it is. Many a times in a hurry, it may happen. This
True.
is commonest mistake. It may happen. But we should always inquire whether the soakage is partially or completely. That means whether the pad was soaked fully or partially, because many a times female may have habit of changing it frequently just because of fastidious nature, or for the purpose of
Agreed,
maintaining
agreed. Yes,
hygiene.
yes.
So we should always inquire. And female being any change than previous menstrual cycle, for them it is something happening for the inside them, or something wrong is happening in them. So rather than going into anxiety with the patient, we should always inquire whether the menorrhagia which she is complaining is actually fulfilling the criteria, whether the pad is completely soaked, whether the discharge is so much that the linen is getting stained, or there is large clots that she is passing. That way we have to inquire and then consider this final symptom. Then in synthesis repertory and even Kent repertory, there is a rubric available for this. If there is excessive bleeding, we should refer to female genitalia menses copious. If the duration is longer, then we should refer to female genitalia menses protracted. Now, as I have used this Minton's uterine therapeutics in my repertory, it is a regional repertory, and I have done the comparative study with the Kane's repertory. I think for the case of menorrhagia, Minton's repertory has a better presentation of the rubric. It is available as menstruation, time and quantity of menstrual discharge, profuse menorrhagia. Second is menstruation, time and quantity of menstrual discharge, protracted, continuing too long. And third is combination of both,
Hmm.
profuse and protracted. It is not available in Kent, neither not even in synthesis repertory. It is only available there. It is the combination. Mostly menorrhagia comes with both. Either excessive amount is there or longer
Number of
duration
days,
is there.
correct.
But most of the times it can be both. So we can use this rubric in the practice, and it has around just 20, 25 or 30 set of remedies, so it is good for differentiation purpose also. In my dissertation, I have mostly used with Sabina, Pulsatilla, Phosphorus, Millefolium, Viburnum opulus, Kalicarp, Silicea, etc. For the treatment of menorrhagia. Okay, then we have another condition called metrorrhagia. That means irregular menstruation, but it is acyclic. It may come in between periods. It's not regular, and even the amount may vary. It
Hmm.
may be excessive, it may be scanty or
Right.
variable. So for this, in Kent and synthesis repertory, both direct rubric is available. That is female genitalia chapter. Under that, metrorrhagia is directly available, and under that you can see the sub rubrics related to the cause, modalities, or the character of discharge. These are all arranged alphabetically. Then also you can refer under female genitalia menses irregular. That also rubric you can refer. Under that there is sub rubrics like in between period or long and variable interval. Such rubrics are available. Even Minton's uterine therapeutic also, there is separate chapter for metrorrhagia. Under that you can get character of menstrual discharge and concomitants related to it. And for this purpose, mostly in my dissertation also, I have not seen clear cases of metrorrhagia. There was always combination of menorrhagia and metrorrhagia. It was always combined. So menometrorrhagia is most commonly seen than metrorrhagia. So in that I have used mostly Crocus sativus, Eustilago, Erigeron, Thalapsibursa pastoris, then Kalicarp, Calicera carp, Sepia, etc. Are mostly used. At the end, what I would like to say is never miss a menstrual history in case of a female. She may come to you at during her menstrual period, or she may come to you after attaining menopause, but always inquire menstrual history, because you may not know that what window is available to you to see your final prescription, and this is the most characteristic window for the homeopathic physician. Because it happens in a hurry. We may Patient will say that my menses were regular and normal. We may not go into much inquiry because it is not related to the menses that she has come to you. She must have come to you for the different disease or entity. But even in that cases also, if you are getting characteristic at the level of menstrual state, then you can utilize that symptom in your totality, and it will help you for the final prescription. It can work as a eliminating symptom. It can help you as your sector totality. So it carries higher value in the final prescription. That's
So, if I may summarize, what I've understood is that now I can recall my fourth year repertory lecture where they said that a question should be framed according to the rubrics which are available in the repertory. And now you have
Yes.
added one more repertory, which is Minton's uterus.
Yes.
To that extent, you have also said that which repertory is useful for which set of symptoms when it comes to the female genital urinary system.
Yes.
So all of you, I request all of you to take notes while you are listening to this. Maybe listen to this again. It may sound a little going a little overboard, but there is a lot of finer detail which are there, and they would be actually helpful in your day-to-day practice. Like Dr. Chetna said that when you are using different repertory, so you're sure that when you get symptoms of menorrhagia, it is going to be Minton's uterus,
Yes.
where you have got a combination of rubrics and you've got lesser number of remedies, easy to differentiate,
Yes,
so on and so forth.
definitely.
And there is a set of criteria for Kent's repertory also. Also, that Dr. Chetna has actually seen these cases, the dissertations,
Yes.
she's actually seen those cases, followed up with them, and then come to a conclusion. So this is very much a research paper that she has written. So in the end, what I understand, what matters is the totality of symptoms. The symptoms, even if they are not there today, were there yesterday, should be incorporated into the totality. That is what we have to take care.
Yes. Especially related to the menstruation, because this is physical general, and it is highly characteristic. It individualizes the patient as a person. That's why you can utilize, unless and until there is localization of the pathology.
Yeah, correct. Then the
Yeah.
game is completely different.
Different, yes.
Right.
Till the time there is no development of pathology, till the time menses is always considered as physical general. After that, it becomes particular. Means if there is pathology, then it becomes particular. Then the value of it lowers as compared to the normal menstrual state. Then when we are talking about totality, like we say, Dr. Cade, he was a master prescriber, right? So there was one book which is available online. It is presented by Dr. Siro, and it contains 111 clinical cases of Professor James Tyler Kent. The name is like that, 111 clinical observations of Dr. James Tyler Kent. So there is this one case of menorrhagia. I'll read as it is,
Yeah,
because
please
I
do,
don't want
because-
to
yeah.
interpret anything.
I
from
agree.
my own. So there is one case of menorrhagia. A 31-year-old, on the day of her marriage, seized with uterine hemorrhage from the excitement. Large clots mixed with bright red liquid flow, copious, has a sickly face with a tendency to sore throats on taking cold, which also makes glands of her neck enlarged. Feet always feels cold and damp. Stockings always feel damp. That means she's having profuse perspiration on feet. Sour taste in the morning, sour eructation. Constipation, going many days without stool. That means there is habitual constipation. Sadness, weeping, perspires much and easily. So, based on all these symptoms, he prescribed Calcarea Carb 13M. He repeated twice, then shifted it to CM, again repeated twice, and in 4 months, patient was cured. So you can see the way he has analyzed the case. So there is characteristic causative emotional modality available, but still he has considered the entire totality of the patient, and after taking into account of that, he has prescribed a final remedy. So what what you can do as a retrospective study, now if you are going back to Kent's repertory, female genitalia, menses, copious, excitement from, check that rubric, Calcarea Carb 3 marks, single remedy will be there. What I am trying to say in this particular case is, see, many a times it happens that we get causative emotional modalities, okay, and it is habit of our mind that if it is mental, we'll just go and check mind chapter of the Kent repertory or
True.
any repertory.
True.
We won't even go into finding on any other sector or any other chapter whether the rubric is available or not. But now in this case also, if you are seeing that excitement after, right, that causative modality is there, if you go back to mind chapter, it is already available. Excitement, emotional elements from, almost 40 remedies are there in the mind chapter, and you can see vis-a-vis in female genitalia only single one remedy. So which one is more appropriate for your case, I'll leave it to your judgment. In this particular case, he got that menses are excessive after excitement, he referred, and the remedy was prescribed. Why I come to this observation, because recently, actually I'm also working in rheumatology department. So recently we had a case. She was a young widow. Just 1 year back, her husband died, and she started suffering from complaints of rheumatoid arthritis, and along with that, she also had amenorrhea. Since then, it was secondary amenorrhea. So there was this clear cut symptom available that menses are absent since she has lost her husband, since the grief that she is suffering from. So we checked female genitalia, menses absent, grief from. Ignatia, single remedy was there. We searched for the references, and the totality of the patient was matching with the totality of the ignatia we prescribed, and the result was really amazing. The next follow-up only, she told us that she has got the menses. She was very much happy, and there were much better result in the symptoms of RA also. So what I want to say is we should explore this single or few remedy rubrics, the causative mental modalities which are there in the female genitalia chapter. There are almost list of, I have just enlisted few 10 rubrics for the reference, but there is list of rubrics which are available. I'll just brief
Yeah,
few.
sure. Please do.
Yeah.
And notes. Uh,
So, female genitalia menses suppressed grief from Ignatia is there. Okay. Then, absent grief from Ignatia single remedy. Suppressed grief from Ignatia cocculus is there. Then, female genitalia menses painful anger from is there. Menses painful fright from Econite tube is there. So, there is female genitalia menses scanty fright from Nux moschata. So there are lot many rubrics like this. Personally, I got experience with this Ignatia, and
hmm.
it very much touched my heart. So I think we should explore these rubrics in our practice also. Okay.
This is a very unique way of two things now I recall. When you said that there is a remedy, a single remedy in a rubric related to menses in the mind,
Yes.
uh, and you will see 40 remedies in the rubric which is related to that particular symptom of menses. I remember from in Kent's philosophy, one of the chapters where he says that unless a remedy is proven completely from head to toe or it has exhausted its list of proving symptoms,
Yes.
is a remedy which should be used. Now that seems like calcarea carb is that remedy, which
Yes.
means you have no other indications. I'm sorry, this is speculation. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if you have any literature, all of you in the comments, please let me know that when there is problem, menstrual symptom that comes up from mental excitement,
Hmm.
calcarea carb would be the choice of remedy. Because otherwise, what I would have done in my practice, I might have, I would have gone for something like Ignatia or Natrum Mur or Nux vomica
Yes.
or something like that. Because the excited state of mind, these set of remedies
Yes.
might belladonna also probably for that matter.
So it's about how we are interpreting the symptom,
Hmm.
how exact symptom and how exact appropriate rubric we are able to find it in the repertory. And here also, I'm not saying that only on the single symptom he has prescribed or we have prescribed.
Agree. I'm not saying that.
Yes, it is not even if we are saying it is a keynote prescription. In keynote prescription also, there is criteria of at least there should be two characteristic general and one characteristic particular. So it's always
Hmm.
that totality that matters at the end. That's it. But these are the few rubrics we should take into our account, and we
Hmm.
should have in the back of our mind that if you are getting such symptom, try looking for that particular remedy if it is suitable for your case. That way,
Right.
means it will narrow down the range of remedies for the final prescription.
No, that makes sense completely because and don't expect. I mean, what you said, I like that is that try to go back to the literature and see the reference and make sure that it
Yes.
matches your case at hand,
Yes.
and then prescribe. Let
Yes.
this be a point of reference and not an ultimate point for prescription.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay. We have concluded a very exhaustive podcast on the subject of repertory and the female genitourinary system. Um, the tips that Dr. Chetna has shared, the knowledge that she has said, like I said in the beginning, this is not just about academics. Probably you can find some research topics also from this, like you
Yes.
said,
Yes.
the causative modalities.
Exploration. Yes.
You can explore that. But at the same time, these are, if you write them down and classify, we'll try to see that if you can get an article from this and publish it so that you can read it at length, the
Yeah.
transcript probably. Right? This will be helpful in your day-to-day practice. If you can identify the process behind prescription or the process behind
Yes.
identifying the symptoms, the rubrics, the classification, and the order of evaluation, and then
Yes.
going back to the references and prescribing. So this is very much a organized way of putting it into practice. So with this, Dr. Chetna, any take-home message for the practitioners and the students, whoever is going to see this video?
Yeah. So, the primmost thing when we are talking about totality or the final prescription, the basic thing which starts is analysis and evaluation of the symptom. How we are identifying and how we are analyzing the symptom based on the whether it is common, characteristic, general, particular, and with that, if you are referring repertory, because repertory is just a tool, it won't discriminate, it won't tell you that this is common, this is characteristic, take this and take that. See, my mentor always says this, if you're giving garbage to the repertory will give you garbage rather in return, that way. So we have to be intellectual, we have to use this analytical process of evaluation and analysis, and then come to a totality which will help us to the final prescription in a better way. That's the
Okay.
take home message.
So this is very good. Thank you, Dr. Chetna, for sparing your time, and the amount of research that she has done to prepare this is exhaustive. Trust me. She's very methodical in that sense, and yeah, she has actually executed this to a lot of perfection. So thank you for being part of Homeomitra Vartalap.
Thank you, Kayur sir, for having me over here.
And yeah, do let us know if you want to learn more from Dr. Chetna. I always felt like she should always be a regular on the podcast, but yeah, whenever that happens. But if you have any comments and questions for her, please mention that. I will leave the website link of Dr. Dhavle Institute in the description. And yeah, so that's it for today. Today's Vartalap. Once again, thank you, Dr. Chetna, and once again,
Thank you,
thank you, the
sir.
audience.
Thank you.